Today's edition of Mac Voices is supported by MacVoices Magazine, our free Flipboard magazine that brings you some of the best Mac, iPhone, and iPad productivity tips on the web. High in signal, low in noise, just like MacVoices, MacVoices Magazine includes information on how you can get more out of your Apple technology. Subscribe at macvoices.com/magazine or search for MacVoices Magazine on Flipboard. Welcome to Mac Voices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. And folks, this is a special one because we have back with us Ms. Tonya Engst. Tonya, welcome. It's good to see you.
Hi, everybody.
Mr. Adam Engst. Adam, welcome.
Glad to be here.
And we have a special bunch of guests from the Long Island Macintosh User Group. Long Island, it's great to see you.
Yes.
I think this is the most people we've ever had on a Mac Voices all at once. And from what they said, they're all mic'd too. So we'll hear from them. So guys, we were invited to LIMac to talk a little bit about the Apple Watch, the new Apple Watch, and what it means and where it's going. So I guess the obvious question is, do either of you or both have the new Apple Series 4?
Alas, no.
No 4, but I have the 3. So,
and I'm still using a 2.
Yeah, I have the 3 with the GPS, the cellular option, which I use quite a lot.
So it's going to be a short meeting, in other words.
So the interesting thing about the Apple Watch Series 4 is not so much that it is it's not like a must upgrade, put it that way. That, for me, having a 2, I don't really need the really cool new health monitoring features, cool as they are, and it doesn't do a whole lot more than the Series 2 or even the Series 3 does. So from the upgrade standpoint, it's not that interesting. There's nothing wrong with that, right? I mean, some products are better upgrades than others. But at the same time, for the new audiences that it brings, that it can attract to the Apple Watch ecosystem, I think that's quite interesting. Or if anyone certainly was, you're having an original Apple Watch that it won't run watchOS 5. We can talk more about what's in watchOS 5. Or if you're just, it's the battery's dead in an original Apple Watch, or you're just starting to get into the Apple Watch now, the Series 4 is really pretty compelling in a lot of ways. And perhaps the only way that it's not compelling is, in fact, it's more expensive than all the previous ones. But it's a very cool device once you're outside of that upgrade question.
And under the heading,
right, and I can just add to that to say that last year I got the Series 3 watch with the cellular plan in it, which was a little bit of a splurge, but I really liked it. But I felt like even though there were some new features in the Series 4 that I just couldn't justify that little small upgrade. But it definitely shows that Apple is committed to the Apple Watch moving forward with adding new features, and we'll talk more about that. But just one question that I wanted to ask the audience before we got too far into this was I want to know who there, if anyone already has a Series 4 and who has some older watch, and who doesn't have any Apple Watch at all. So if we could poll the audience, I think that would be really super.
Okay, so who has a Series 4, folks? Raise your hands. Okay, we have a couple. How about a Series 3? Series 2?
Yeah, we have Series 2. Yeah.
Okay. Have anybody holding on to an original Apple Watch? Huh. Interesting.
All right.
Under the heading of full disclosure, I have a 4. So.
There we go.
Yeah. So, Tonya, you didn't say. I mean, I guess Adam wouldn't let you get one. Is that true?
Oh no! It definitely the features that it brings just didn't seem worth the money. I'll maybe next year or the year after I'll spend for another one.
So I mean, the real thing that I think that the Apple Watch Series 4 brings to the table are the health monitoring features. That it's got a slightly larger screen, it's a little thinner, blah blah blah. That those are all nice things, but they're not game changers. So where the Series 4 really becomes an interesting device is once you're in a population where the fall detection, the atrial fibrillation detection, and the ECG become interesting. And frankly, I think, to put bluntly, it's aimed at an older audience. That fall detection for a younger person is not a bad thing, but it's not even going to be on by default, because if young person falls, they're a little bit more likely to just go, oh, that hurt, and get up. Whereas it's more of a worry if it's an older person who falls and hits their head and is knocked out and maybe lives alone, those kinds of situations. And so, it's worth talking more about some of the details because they're actually a little bit subtle. Our security editor, Rich Mogul, actually is also a paramedic, and he did a long article on TidBITS about how the Apple Watch will and will not save lives. And the fall detection, I think, is the thing that he is just the most jazzed about, because he said you would not believe the number of what they call slip and fall calls that EMTs get. And so for Rich to be able to, to look at this and say, this would have actively saved lives. If someone could have been notified within 1 minute of falling, if the emergency services could have been notified, that could really have helped people. And so, that's a big deal. And particularly, even if it's not a fatal fall, and hit your head, how many times have we heard about people slipping and falling and breaking their hips? And they can't get up and they can't call for help, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, and our friend Chuck Latornos has documented some of his health issues very openly in several articles on Macworld, and what the Apple Watch has done for him. I'm not quite sure he's ready to say that it saved his life, but it definitely alerted him to some issues that were serious enough that they could have been much more serious than they ended up being. So there's something to be said for that. And the ECG, I think, is going to be especially interesting once we get it.
Well, so the ECGs, so Rich actually talked about this quite a lot. And keep in mind, this is all secondhand. I actually know what I know from reading Rich's article about ECGs. I guess the ECG is what's called a lead one ECG. So it can sort of detect the transmission of electrical signals kind of across the heart, which is useful in certain ways, but for instance, it won't detect a heart attack. So what this is going to do is going to start to detect certain kinds of irregularities. And what I think Rich was really suggesting, and actually a little bit of disclosure here, Apple claims that the Apple Watch Series 4 is the first FDA-approved mainstream ECG device, which isn't true. In fact, that goes to a device called the KardiaBand, which was an Apple Watch band that came out in January of this year. And we know about it because in 2017, my father had heart valve repair surgery. And so he was complaining about let me tell you, when they cut you open and do heart surgery, you don't feel good for a long time. And he had various things go on where he's like, my heart doesn't feel right. But of course, it never happened at the doctor. It's terrible. You're sitting there at the doctor, I feel fine now. ECG looks normal. But so we got him this as a Christmas present, actually, and it allowed him to take an ECG whenever he didn't feel good, which was at random times, of course. Or he discovered actually that it was related to getting too hot, that if he was overheated for whatever reason, his heart would start to be a little irregular. And so he was able to take those to his doctor, and his doctor could look at them and say, okay, yes, this makes sense. This isn't anything to worry about, but I understand what you're saying now. And so it's a little bit more of a, for someone who does have a heart condition or is concerned about a heart condition, it allows you to do more monitoring in the kind of the interstices. Not just when you're at a doctor with a good ECG, because even the EMT ones will be at least 3 leads, and the doctor's office will be 12 leads, so they can tell a whole lot more that's going on. And Rich was saying, there's just sort of no way to do 3 leads when you've got, a sensor on your arm and a sensor, basically, your finger touching the other sensor. That's a really limited, cross path. And so unless you're going to start attaching these things all over your body and then connecting to your watch, you're not going to ever get a really more accurate ECG out of this.
But at the same time, Apple sets itself up for this. Okay, I get that. But at the same time, this is better than anything, well, with the exception maybe of that KardiaBand.
Very similar, in fact.
Yeah, that we've had before. And so, we're moving in that direction. I mean, I know people, they want their blood pressure taken and they want their blood sugar taken by the watch. And those things may come at some point, but these are very early days for this kind of thing.
Yes.
But
which goes into the blood pressure and respiratory and all of those kinds of things, and actually talks, and a lot of them, obviously there's a lot of work going on, but there's just a limit to what you can read through the skin on your wrist.
Right.
So that's true. Now, the Afib stuff, the atrial fibrillation, that's actually much more interesting than the ECG in some ways, because you may not know that you're having Afib. And so just a refresher for people who don't know, I didn't know until I read the article what it was. Basically, the atria of the heart, the chambers at the top, if the nerves or the kind of the signals in those atria get confused, the atria can go into fibrillation and stop pumping properly. And the real problem there doesn't mean you're going to die. The ventricles are actually doing most of the work in pumping the blood through the body. But what it does mean is that blood can pool in the atria or around the atria, and then you get blood clots. It coagulates, and you get a clot. So the problem with AFib is not a heart problem so much as a stroke problem. One of those clots, if a clot forms and it goes to the brain, you got a big problem. And what Rich was saying is in this article, the AFib detection is a really big deal, because that's something that you may not know. And you may be completely asymptomatic. And if this can actually say, hey, I think I just detected that you're an AFib, you should go get that checked out. It's a great early warning of something that could be a huge health problem not all that far down the road.
And you started out by bringing up the fall detection, which, older, younger, I mean, honestly, and I'm not pulling your chain, either one of you, but I would think you two as runners might find that.
Oh, we fall all the time.
Yeah. So, yeah.
But here's the problem, right? In fact, on the morning, you can even still see it on my palm a little bit. The morning of the Apple announcement where they announced the Series 4, I fell off my bike in the driveway. Stupid loose gravel. Machines had moved up our driveway for various reasons. And yeah, stupid fall, but I just literally fell over. And this wouldn't have done anything for me, because for the fall detection to do something, you have to be motionless for a minute. Then you have to not respond to it saying, do you want me to call emergency services? Then it's going to call emergency services. So, I probably wouldn't really, if I had an Apple Watch Series 4, I might turn it on just for giggles to see when it went on. But only once I've ever fallen badly enough where emergency services would have been reasonable, and that was a fall on a bike, and I don't know if it would catch that. I was going from a very high speed to a very low speed very quickly. But it was not the trip and fall or the slip and fall that that it's supposed to detect. So I don't know whether it would have caught that.
I think kind of what Adam is saying is if you fall somewhat routinely, like I run 20 or 30 miles a week. Adam, I don't know how much you run, something like that. We do a lot of trail running. So the point being, it's pretty typical every 6 months or so you fall. It's just part of the situation. But the problem is, most of the time, well, almost all the time when you fall, you don't need the trouble and expense and bother of emergency services being called. But I'm a little concerned actually about that feature, because I might need more than a minute before I really want to deal with my watch when I'm all sweaty and confused and I've just fallen over. So it's kind of a trade-off there. But if I was legitimate more concerned about really being knocked out and or really being completely disabled in some way and needing help, then it would be a really fabulous service. And they're saying that the watch really is waterproof enough so you can wear it right into the shower, for instance, which is a place where people do often slip.
Yes.
And that seems very valuable. It also, Adam can help me out if I'm a little confused here. I believe it works whenever you're connected onto Wi-Fi, so you could, take it out of the house. I guess a lot of the other types of services where you can get something that you could wear with like a button on it only work when you're in your home.
Right. It's not Wi-Fi, it's cellular. I mean, basically, it's assuming that either you've got a cellular connection via the watch itself, or you've got your companion iPhone.
Right. So it's better. It would be much better for an elderly person who's not housebound if they're going out and about. As long as they are being good about wearing their watch, they're good to go. And someone was pointing out, Adam and I were presenting at the Oneonta Mug last night.
Just last night.
Last night.
Like a long time ago.
Someone was pointing out that the main place where it wouldn't protect an older person was if the watch was charging overnight, like on their nightstand, if they just got up to use the bathroom, which is a time, when it's dark, you could be disoriented. That would be a time when they likely wouldn't have the Apple Watch on.
Yeah.
So something to think about.
One of the big things that is a real question with, again, sort of the target audience is that, can you wear the watch reliably? As often as it's a problem. Can you keep it charged? And do you have an iPhone that you can, that's sort of going to be connected to, that's also going to be working and all of that? And I think back to my grandmothers, who both died in their mid-90s. That was true of them up to a point. And then it really wasn't true. There would have been no way that they could have used this. So,
Adam, elaborate on that. What you say to a certain point? At what point would they not have?
My one grandmother had dementia, and you could not have gotten her to do something reliably, like put on a watch.
Okay.
Well, for instance, the batteries, the hearing aid, where the hearing aid was, where the batteries were, she never knew. So I don't think the watch would have gone any better for her, sadly.
Okay.
And again,
and also for one of Adam's grandmas, I don't think she could have gotten the watch on and off by herself, because she had all kinds of arthritis and whatnot issues.
Yeah. And just in general, again, when someone's, potentially in their 90s and, there's some various mental degradation has kicked in, just being able to manage it might be too much. Everything's a case-by-case basis, but that is the one problem with the entire thing is you have to have a watch, you have to have an iPhone. You don't necessarily have to have the watch have its own cell plan, but you at least have to have both of those devices, and the iPhone has to be working. And that's a lot for someone potentially in their 90s who maybe they weren't that technical to begin with.
Right.
So there's lots of people who would have no trouble at all, and it's going to be great for them. And I fully expect that the Apple Watch Series 4 is going to be like the hot Christmas Hanukkah present this year. For one's parents.
Tonya, you said that you got a cell plan on your Series 3.
Sure did.
So is that because of the running, because you didn't want to take the iPhone?
Yeah, largely because of that. Not only did I not want to take the iPhone with me running, which I can choose to do if it's just me, but I actually teach a PE class over at Cornell University where 3 days a week I take college students out for a 5K run, and I am required to have a cell phone with me when I do that. But the requirement isn't like literally a phone. They just want me to be able to to call for emergency services if someone gets hurt. So the Apple Watch works beautifully for that, especially right on the Cornell University campus or right near to it. There's great connectivity, and I've tested it numerous times, and it always works fine. So that's been really nice, because just being able to leave the iPhone in the car or at home, not only can I make and receive phone calls, I can make reminders on the watch while I run, which is really great, because when I'm running is when I think of everything. I can I usually have music already on the watch, but if I just really want to listen to something that I haven't taken the time to transfer over, I can stream it with Apple Music. That's really nice. Something I haven't tried yet, but I believe it should work great. Now the podcast app, Apple's podcast app, is available on the phone, on the watch. Should be able to stream right into the watch and listen to podcasts. So it's been a great feature. It costs just a little bit more every month, but I definitely completely use it. It probably prevents me from bringing my iPhone places and losing it there.
The other thing I think is worth noting is even in the house, Tonya tends to leave her phone on counters and in different rooms and whatnot because she doesn't have pockets the way guy pants usually have pockets. And so the watch, even when she's wearing the watch all the time so that she can find her phone too.
Yeah, I use the Find My Phone feature pretty often on the watch. You can tell if I'm leaving the house because I make little chirping noises like while around turning. If I'm taking the phone with me, I make little noise.
Yeah, I've been known to use that feature myself.
It's a great feature.
Yeah. I will say this, as the owner of a Series 4, and I got the 44 millimeter, I'm struck by how much more information I can put on the face, especially with the info. Can we do that?
Infograph.
Whoops, I don't want that. There we go. Yeah, with that face. Is it a little busy? Yeah, but I really like the idea of having 3-4 of my frequently used apps there, and then 3 or 4 more of the information apps, if you will. And that's another thing too, and maybe we're crossing into Watch OS 5 territory, but it strikes me that these apps are getting better. They're getting more sophisticated. Much like the iPhone, when apps first came out, they were kind of one-trick ponies, and they did something, and most of them did it well, but that was all they did. And then we got into a lot more depth on the iOS apps, and I feel like we're right at the edge of that with the watch apps.
I would actually suggest that Watch OS 4, the previous version, was the first one where the apps were actually usable. That they were just so slow in the first couple of versions. And so it was just painful to bring up an app and sit and watch it for 30 seconds or a minute load. I mean, you would just stop. You'd get bored because you can't sit there looking at your wrist for, minutes and minutes and minutes. And now, with Watch OS 4 and then Watch OS 5, they just react quickly enough. The Apple made some big changes, and so it's been improving hugely in each generation. I don't know how much better a Series 4 is, but I expect having the extra processing power just makes it again all the snappier.
It definitely is. And one other thing too, you were talking about the charging of the watch. My habit is I wear the watch all the time. I wear it to sleep for sleep tracking.
Oh, when do you charge it?
I charge it when I get up in the morning. I get in the shower.
Don't slip.
Yeah, I know.
Oh,
don't
man,
slip.
You're going to be in trouble when you fall in the shower.
Yeah, but other than that, and the interesting thing is that I find that much time, which by the time I pick it up again after I get dressed is about 30 minutes, I've charged the watch fully.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I've got a full charge for the day. It's
very funny how certain things on the watch take for a really long time. Like if you have to upgrade Watch OS, it can take freaking forever. But charging, which it's obviously a completely different activity. But charging, it charges really fast. And so if you particularly if you like had another charger, if you had one at home, one at work, or something like that, you could whack it on a charger and be up to up to full, and as you say, in no time at all. Just any time when it was easy because you're just sitting at your desk, you don't need it. So, although I will say, one of perhaps my favorite Apple Watch feature is the automatic unlock on the Mac. Just walk up to the Mac and it unlocks. And I feel all the better about having a password on my Mac and not having to type it.
Yeah. Yeah, and those are the little features I think that are going to start to creep into this, the convenience features.
Right.
I haven't set anything up with Siri shortcuts yet to try to react to my environment other than the Mac, but I'm looking forward to doing that so that maybe at one day I walk in my house and the lights turn on and my HomePod starts to play whatever I want it to play, and maybe dinner starts. I don't know. So let's get the audience in here with any questions or comments that they have, because we can certainly go on for a while. Any thoughts on Apple Watches of any kind there? Yes, sir.
I don't have one yet, but I'm listening to your comments, and it seems that my question is, how long does a full charge last?
All day. So the question was, how long does a full charge last?
Yeah.
And the answer is basically all day. And so it's interesting because we'll see, because I have a 2, Chuck has a 4, and Tonya has a 3. And so it's not so much that, the battery life has changed between the 3 of them. It may have, but obviously the older it is, the weaker the battery. And so with my 2, if I do not do a workout on it, I can go all day without noticing. If I do a workout, in fact, it's still working, but it alerted me just at the very beginning of this presentation that I had 10% power left. So the workout does drag it down a bit. And there's actually even some settings. If I turned off the heart rate monitoring, I could improve that, but I more or less don't care. So I would say that's an issue. But Tonya, I don't think you hardly ever run out on your 3.
So if I do a workout with the workout app, Apple's app, and I'm listening to music at the same time on my AirPods, I will probably run out before the end of the day, especially if the workout is more than an hour. But if I use the third-party app called Strava, which is very popular in the running and cycling community around Ithaca anyway, I would only possibly run out if my workout was like 2.5 or more hours.
And I think that's because of the difference in heart rate monitoring. Strava's not doing heart rate monitoring, whereas the Workouts app does unless you turn it off.
You're probably right. But when we travel, for instance, which would be probably a day without a workout, but if it's one of those days where you're doing airports all day and you somehow end up not sleeping for 20 hours or something, the watch is usually chugging along just fine. So I think, if lives depend on the watch working, it's not. I wouldn't put it in a situation where life depended on it staying charged. But I think in normal day-to-day use, it's reliable.
So this is not a device that somebody would buy to give to mom and dad to replace the help, I've fallen and I can't get up ended.
So it's going to actually suffer from roughly the same problems. So the help I've fallen kind of thing, if I remember, it was a lanyard that you had to wear.
Yeah.
And so you're going to have to, it's going to have to be something that's put on. It's going to have to be charged. As Chuck noted, it charges very quickly, but yeah, you got to wear it. You got to take it off to charge it. So, it is definitely something that is going to require awareness of those limitations. It's not like, an old Timex where you can just wear it all the time. And modern smartwatches just don't work that way because they consume too much power.
I have some thoughts on that. I have some thoughts on that.
Yeah. Right.
Well, my thought is there may be some parents who are not going to wear one of those lanyard things because they feel like it makes them look old, but they might be really happy with an Apple Watch because it does all these cool things, and yeah, if I fall, call or whatever, I could make a phone call on it if I fell because it would be attached to me. So they might be more willing to wear the Apple Watch in some cases. Another actually Apple technology that could be useful, sort of depending on the person and where they live. If it's a big big house or a small apartment, actually would be a HomePod, because you can actually make a phone call from the HomePod. So if they haven't actually fallen and cracked their head to the point where they can't move, but they've fallen to the point where they know they need help, they really just have to say, like, hey Siri, call phone number, call my son, or we have a HomePod, but so if what the best technology is might depend on their specific circumstance, and there may be some other products that could be brought into the mix, or more than one product that they ought to be using.
Yeah, and to answer the question about the battery life, on my 4, for an average day, which will include some physical activity, will include some time at the office, and then wearing it all night, I find that it's about, it'll vary between 25 and 35% down. And so, and again, in that 30 minutes I'm in the shower and getting dressed, it comes right back up. So now that, to be fair, it's newer than Adam or Tonya's. And also because it's a 44 millimeter, I believe it's a little bit bigger battery.
Yeah,
so,
the bigger devices have more batteries.
Yeah, so you've got that. But, and I guess I still get hung up on the idea that we're looking for an ideal fall detection device or fall alert device, and there is none. But if this solves part of a problem, I think, I mean, Tonya, it was very interesting, some of the things you were talking about with your grandparents. I hadn't thought about some of those issues, but at the same time, if you can get them, do it, or even if you put it on for them, or a caregiver puts it on in the morning,
right,
and takes it off at night, or makes sure that it's charged as part of the caregiving process, it's an awfully nice feature to have should something catastrophic happen.
And I will say also, one of the nice things about the Apple Watch is that there's so many bands that actually you can probably find one that will fit well and stay on well and all of those things. I'm actually tremendously fond of the new nylon sport bands, kind of the woven sport bands, because they're infinitely adjustable. I mean, one of the problems with the old ones is you have to find the right hole, and it was just wasn't always the case. You couldn't always get the hole to fit your exact wrist. So, there's a lot of choice there. And again, if it's something you're going to be suggesting someone wears all the time, you want it to be as comfortable and, and as Tonya was noting, as not embarrassing as possible. Everyone has not everyone. Lots of people have Apple Watches. There's no shame in wearing an Apple Watch, whereas you might feel a little embarrassed if you have this, thing around your neck, worrying about a fall.
Yeah, and Tonya, you were showing, you have the fluoroelastomer?
Yeah, this is the band that I got on with my original watch. I've moved it. I just really like it because it's good for sports, but it seems to go pretty much everywhere with me. And I wasn't thinking what Adam said about how, if it was someone who was going to have trouble getting the watch on and off, you would look to get a band that would be easier for them. This fluoroelastomer sports watch band is actually not particularly easy to get on and off, and it does take pretty good coordination.
But this sports band is really easy because you don't have to do anything other than, it's always connected. You can't lose the band.
Yeah, that would be much easier.
And close. Yeah, so that's a really easy one.
Yeah. And I've got one of the original Apple magnetic ones, which I swear by because I can make it as loose or as tight.
Precisely.
It snaps shut.
Yeah.
The other thing, though, I've since we're on this discussion of how easy it is to get them on and off, I think the brand is still Spidell that makes the old Twist-A-Flex now for an Apple Watch. So if your parents or you or whatever were comfortable with those. I mean, that was real easy. Just it stretched out and then it went back to the size of the wrist. So,
Nice.
yeah. One more option. Anyone else with questions? Yes, I think I see a hand. Do I see a hand? Do I hear a voice?
Yeah, do you know the price of the 4? How much it cost?
Sorry, one more time, please.
The question is, do you know the price of the 4, the Series 4?
Yes. So the Series 4, there's 2 models. You can get it with just Wi-Fi, or you can get it with Wi-Fi and cellular. And the Wi-Fi one is $400. The Wi-Fi plus cellular one is $500. And those prices have bumped up from the previous models. If you want an Apple Watch, but you don't really need the health monitoring features of the 4, and you don't want to pay for them, you can still get the Series 3. I want to say that one's $279 now. Is that right, Chuck?
That sounds about right. Yeah.
Yeah. Apple's been doing a pretty good job of kind of populating the lower, making sure there's a lower end, cheaper model by keeping the previous version around. So when the Series 3 was new, you could still buy a Series 2, et cetera, et cetera.
Also, if you were to go for a cellular model, in order to use it, you basically add on to the cell plan that your iPhone uses. Adam, I think you're more aware than I am. Is it $10 a month?
$10 a month, yeah.
Yeah, so it's $10 additional a month, so that you have the initial cost of the somewhat more expensive watch with the cellular chip inside of it, and then you have the ongoing $120 a year additional cell charge.
And I will say, as much as that, you're kind of like, but I mean, well, actually, I'm tremendously offended by it, honestly. It's not like it's using different bandwidth than I would be using otherwise with my iPhone. So it just seems like another way to, hit us for an extra charge. But that said, I have to assume any one of these existing monitoring services for fall detection or being able to call emergency services, those kinds of things are going to cost at least $10 a month. So, and honestly, for the amount that healthcare costs, $10 a month is nothing.
And for me, truly, it seemed like kind of a splurge, but there's been a few times when I'm out running and my brain just starts spewing reminders, and to just have the ability to get them into my online reminder system while I'm out for a run. There have definitely been reminders that have resulted, in, clients being billed more promptly and birthday presents being, sent on time, and just a lot of goodness that actually was worth $120 to have those things occur promptly and correctly.
Okay, Tonya, I can't let that go. What reminder system do you use? Do you just use Apple's reminders, or do you have a specific system?
Well, I have Apple's reminders is one of the kind of inputs into my to-do system. So yes, I will make a reminder right on the watch, hey Siri, remind me at 9:00 tomorrow morning to send Chuck Joyner follow-up email or whatever it is. And then in an ideal morning, I will look at my reminders to see what might be there. Sometimes, particularly if I'm out running, the reminder that comes in over the cellular network and into iCloud and lands in my reminders, it might be worded a bit strangely.
Yeah, sometimes when you tell Siri things, you really have to do some interpretation.
It also might be worded strangely because while I'm running, I don't stop to look at the wording on the reminder to see what it says. So sometimes it's phonetic, but it's a little strange. So I will look at it from the Reminders app, which also puts notifications up on my Mac screen and my iPhone screen. And I will either take care of it right then because I've been reminded, or if it's too complicated, can't get to it right then and there, I will put it in a different to-do list system that kind of is less naggy.
I can vouch for the interpretation of some of those reminders, especially if you make them at 3 a.m. You roll over and think, "Oh, I forgot to do that. Hey, S lady, remind me to." And then the next morning you look at it and think, "What did I say?"
What's useful I found
George?
when you get those is to just kind of read it out loud.
Yes.
Because often the sounds are right.
Yes.
Like if you're just looking at the text, it's completely garbled. But if you actually just say it out loud, like, oh yeah, that was what I meant.
Yeah.
And of course, you have to set up reminders so that it's syncing through iCloud between all your devices where you want these things to show up. And also make sure in the settings reminders on your various devices that your default reminders list for new reminders is something that you're going to look at. So there's a little bit of setup.
Other questions, folks? Yes, sir.
I just wanted to say that you're talking about the watch, and I think that the best part of the watch happens to be all the apps that are available. I mean, I use maybe 5 different apps every time I wear the watch. Sometimes, maybe the next day I'll switch it. But there's always apps that are really right to the point. One of the best ones that I have is something that comes with the Apple Watch, and that's Minnie Mouse. At night, I don't have to open my eyes to see what time it is. I just reach over and I give her a tap. She tells me what time, and I go right back to sleep. It's the best thing there is.
That's more than we needed to know.
So actually, speaking of the watch at night, we have these. Maybe I'll go snag one at some point. We have these tremendously cute little watch stands. They're just made out of kind of rubber, but they look like classic Macs, like Mac Pluses. And you slide the watch in, and the watch becomes the screen. But the beauty of, and again, I think this was watchOS 4 where it really got good. watchOS 3 is not bad either. The Apple has this thing called nightstand mode. And so when the watch is on its side and it's in nightstand mode, you just kind of tap, even like on the bedside table, and it detects the tap, and it turns on just the screen with just a very specific, like, green digital clock face that shows you the time for about 10 seconds. And then it shuts off again. And I'm one of those people, I really don't like lights in the bedroom, and Tonya hates them even more. So, kind of the old style alarm clocks are always showing light was always a problem for us. And so this is just a brilliant way of being able to see it really quickly. Yeah, Tonya's got
I'm
it.
going to talk so that I think that will make my screen go big.
Yep.
So this is the thing that goes on your nightstand. You can see it looks like a little Macintosh.
It has a floppy disk still. Yes.
And it has the charging cable comes out the back. And I'm just going to take off my watch. And so at night, you put your watch in. And if it was plugged in, which tragically it's not, but if it was, the watch face would actually show a little time. It would show the time, and it will show whether I've got the alarm set or not. Maybe if I tap it, it'll come up. There we go.
Yeah.
Only it doesn't understand because it's not plugged in. But anyway, it's just so cute. I feel that even when the Apple Watch doesn't fit in it anymore or something in 10 years, I won't throw it out because it's just this super cute little mini Macintosh.
I think they were like $10 somewhere. I mean, they're easy to find. So,
I mean, they're basically just a plastic shell because you're using the charging cable that came with it.
yes, precisely.
Yeah.
And they're not even. Yeah, they're just kind of rubbery plastic. So it's really nice. They feel nice.
Yeah.
But to go back to the comment, the apps are cool. I think one of the things that we perhaps early on, early on, again, the apps were pretty weak, and they've gotten way better, just in terms of Apple improving watchOS. But I think that one of the things that's a little bit hard to remember is that you might have a lot of apps on your iPhone because it can do a lot more. There's not as many things that make sense to do from your wrist, so you're going to pick and choose much more carefully. So no one's going to use, like 30 apps on their watch regularly, where they might on their iPhone, but you are pretty likely to find, 2 or 3 that you use all the time. So, for instance, we're big users of Dark Sky and the weather app, and it's got a good iPhone app, or a watch app, I mean. So, so that's one of those ones that just, is just better. Or Strava, actually, we both use Garmin GPS watches most of the time, but you forget your Garmin at home, you've got this watch on, and Strava just works. So, it's nice having all that capability on your wrist.
Yeah, agreed. And that's why I guess the larger screen appealed to me, because I'm finding that there are more apps that I really like having literally at my fingertip.
Well, and I guess the other question, perhaps you can answer this, Chuck, is it easier to read? I'm getting to the point where I can barely read the damn thing. My eyes are going. So. Well,
yeah, but just by the very nature of it, if you want to, you can make it
bigger. Yeah.
Make it bigger.
So, I think I would probably, unfortunately, have to switch to less information, but I could read it.
Yeah, but well, if you're, are you talking about like reading? Text?
No, I'm talking like the Workouts app. I can't read the digits.
Oh, okay.
It's just too small.
Okay.
So, it's awkward. I'm running and I'm trying to look at this thing on my wrist, and I just can't pull out the details at all. So, and again, I am one of those people of a certain age where my eyes aren't what they used to be, and they weren't good before. So,
yeah.
My question is, I have an Apple One watch, which I really don't wear too often, because it is not waterproof, water resistant. Like when I swim and I work out, I'm swimming like sometimes 1,000 yards. I start, so on. Is the Apple 2 or 3 watch water resistant enough so I could wear it during underwater during a long swimming workout? And will the controls work if underwater if I want to start it or stop it?
Sorry, I couldn't catch that at all.
There's something about using it underwater. The Apple keeps improving the water resistance level a little bit each time. My understanding is yes, you can swim with them now, but no, you can't use the screen in water. It's capacitive, so it just sort of doesn't work. The buttons will still work, but there's a limit to what those do. They tend to move you between app screens and things like that. So they're not actually helpful. This is in fact one of the reasons why I don't use it as a sport watch. I may wear it, but it's just I can't read the screen, particularly in sunlight, and I have to actually fiddle with the screen rather than the buttons to be able to start and stop and all that, which is just much harder, particularly if it's raining or I'm really sweaty or whatever. So, it's not fabulous underwater, but it is nicely waterproof, so you don't have to worry about using it in the shower, after swimming with it, all that kind of stuff.
And I'm going to throw this in too. This is not a reason to buy the Series 4, but it's just a nice little addition. These whatever they've done to the speaker on it, it is definitely louder.
Yeah.
There's no question about that. And so I'm not sure you're going to want to listen to music on it necessarily, but as far as alarms, notifications, anything like that, yeah, or having Siri read something to you or read a message or whatever, yeah, it's great. Makes a big difference. Yes, sir.
Regarding this kind of came up. The charging cables. I'm wondering, does it use the lightning connector to charge the watch?
Tonya, can you show them the charging?
Yeah.
Well, the reason
It's like a standard USB.
No, other side.
The other side. The other side is
It's a
I actually
puck.
don't think I can get out of here. It's this
It pushes out from the back.
let's see. There we go.
So it uses what's called inductive charging.
Yes.
And so you just set it on this kind of little circular puck,
There it is.
and it charges magnetically. It charges, for induction.
You stick it on this thing.
And it's kind of a magnet that holds it on in place.
It kind of clicks onto it so that it sticks a little.
And it's just a standard USB on the other side.
And then be extended. I found that when I'm in a hotel somewhere, some hotels have USB charging plugs right in the lamps now, the table lamps.
Mm-hmm.
They sure do.
Some still are not in the modern sense, and you have to maybe plug in a charger across from the bed. So I have a 10-foot cable or 12-foot cable that I can use when I'm charging my iPad. But I'm wondering if those things can be extended so they can be used when you're in a hotel that is not a modern hotel.
You can get a USB extension cable, and that's not a problem. But you've touched on something that I feel very passionate about, and that is that
Hotel USB ports.
hotel USB ports do not
passion.
I do, because you're talking about power here that you're passing into these very expensive devices. For heaven's sake, at the very least, get the little power brick or use the little power brick that came with it and put an extension cord on that.
Yeah.
But you don't know who wired up that hotel USB port, and God knows if it's the same people that did the hotel air Wi-Fi.
Yeah. So we went to Europe for a friend's wedding this summer, and I got this little device here. It's one of those kind of universal power adapters, and it has different settings for different countries and everything. But it's got one kind of major plug for a computer, or normal outlet, and then it has on these other sides, it has 4 USB ports, and it's got a fuse and all that inside it too. So I'm actually very fond of this for being able to get power close to where I want it in a hotel room without having to carry something big. I mean, this is just tiny, and it will also handle me whatever country I go to. So it doesn't usually come up very often, but it works just as well in the U.S. as it does anywhere else because of that.
Thanks.
So one final point on the cable length. For reasons we do not know, and Apple never said, the original Apple Watch came with a 6-foot cable, which it would be great for, as what you're saying for, but for just like a normal situation where it's like going from your to your nightstand or something like that, 6 foot was insane. It was just way too long, and they switched it down to I don't know, there's 2 or 3 in the current ones. But it was kind of amusing that early on they just had a completely different view of how long you needed that cable to be.
When you traveled, you had to get this whole cable,
Right, 6 foot of cable. You're kind of winding it up for a little while. You keep winding and winding and winding.
Yeah, but Tonya, can you show that? I mean, show your little power brick again.
So you can almost see. Here you go. The whole
That's
thing.
a 3-foot one.
Probably 2.5 feet, something like that.
But if you carry, if you want to carry something.
And the little power brick.
Yeah,
it's
and
great. It's just so versatile, and it's just power on one side and USB on the other side.
And so whether you plug that into the wall in the hotel or whether you plug it into just a regular old extension cord that you have, you stick in your backpack or your luggage or whatever, you're going to be a lot safer than plugging something in that you don't know how it was wired. And if you really want to get paranoid, don't forget that information can flow back out of that cable too. So, who's on the other side of that, sucking information out of your phone?
No. Well, the phone.
Well,
okay.
Not the watch. Yeah,
not the watch.
Not the watch. But yeah. So
watch is safe in that regard. But yeah, the phone conceivably.
Yeah. And I think I think John F. Braun of Mac Geek Gab bought a cheap charger somewhere and partially melted his iPhone or something. So please be careful.
Yeah, it's. I mean, the Apple ones. I mean, it's worth getting an Apple one, or at least a reputable brand.
Yeah. Anything else, folks? Or another question?
Yeah, I was at the Apple store.
Louder, please.
I was at the Apple store, and the watch can play iTunes, but you have to connect to a Bluetooth. And he said in a future version 5, you might be able to have a speaker, you were just discussing the speaker, and use the watch just to play music. The person at the Apple store says they don't know, but he's expecting with later releases. Do you have any speculation, ideas on whether you can just use your watch to listen to iTunes?
So if I'm hearing right, the question is can you use the watch with a Bluetooth speaker?
No, you can use it with Bluetooth, but you can't use it as a standalone at this point to play music through iTunes.
I can't really hear.
Yeah, sorry. I think, are you saying that you want to be able to use your watch to play music through a Bluetooth speaker from iTunes?
No, what you can do is on iTunes on the watch, you can connect it with Bluetooth and play it through a Bluetooth speaker.
Yes.
Or like the remote app on the watch.
Right, but he's speculating, this person worked at the Apple store said, the 5 might have a big enough speaker that you can use the watch to just play music from the iTunes.
Oh yes. Okay, so right. So with the Series 4, Chuck, you can do this. You can actually play music on yours. Right?
Yeah.
But literally coming out of the watch.
Oh yes. Yeah. They're coming out of the watch.
Which we can't do.
Oh, don't think. I mean, frankly, I don't do it, so I didn't know. My 3 wouldn't do it.
So that's something new. I don't know. Again, I have no idea how good that would be. I mean, it might be fine if you're just like don't want to have AirPods in, or it's inappropriate for some reason. But the one thing I will note is I have I don't have AirPods. Tonya has the AirPods. I have this tiny little kind of hearing aid style $7 Chinese Bluetooth single ear earbud. The combination, I don't know whether it's this or it's the watch or what. It only works when it's on the same. And this has to go in the right ear. I have to move my watch to my right wrist, or it's too far away. And so, Bluetooth is one of those slightly dodgy technologies, frankly. And both in the technology and how well it's implemented. And so, like, if you were trying to use Bluetooth to power Bluetooth on the watch to power a Bluetooth speaker, frankly, I wouldn't bet on it working all that well. It should work. It might work, but as you move around and you get too far away, it might cut out. Those kinds of things. So that's something that I would be a little questioning about. So Tonya, have you ever seen how far away you can get from your AirPod, with your AirPods, how far you can get from something that's playing the source?
I've never really tried to get very far away. I still don't know what the actual question is, so I'm not sure who answered it. But I will say that the Series 4 watch has better Bluetooth than the Series 3 watch, and better Bluetooth is always better.
Yes.
Yeah, and I have not tried to do that. That's something I probably should check out. But when I was saying earlier about the better speaker, I was primarily referring to being able to hear Siri confirm what I've asked her, or tell me what Apple stock price is, or answer the usual Siri questions. So I'll have to look into the music a little more, just for the research sake.
Well, I mean, there's been times when I've been not with the watch, but I've been working outside or whatever reason, and it just is easiest to have the iPhone playing a podcast through its speaker in my pocket. Rather, because I'm, like actually before I had this little earbud, which is like a hearing aid, so it kind of really sticks in your ear. If I'm doing yard work, I'm not going to wear wired earbuds. they'll get pulled out instantly. So that was a case where it was just easier to have the iPhone in my back pocket while I was weeding or something.
Chuck, you mentioned sleep monitoring. I think you were the only one who actually brought that up. Could you say a little something about that?
I pretty much resisted the whole quantified lifestyle thing. And then I started strapping this Apple Watch on my wrist, and I pay a lot more attention to all of it. The sleep thing is sort of fun. I use something called Auto Sleep, and it just gathers up information and lets me look at it. And I think it's particularly been just interesting when there are nights that I know that I haven't slept well, trying to compare the readings on that or the results of that to the nights that I feel like I really did sleep well. And I'm quick to tell you that it actually can cause you a little bit of anxiety when you think you've slept all this time and your watch says, no, you didn't, and you really didn't get any deep sleep, you didn't get any quality sleep.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm not sure you want to quantify some of these things.
Yeah, it's a mixed bag. I mean, it's more of an interest. It's not like I'm obsessed with it, like some people are with closing their rings. They'll get, before they go to bed, they'll run around the bed a few times to make sure they close the rings. But I figure, it does it without me interfering or having to really think about it. So why not?
Well, I'm intrigued to know that you're using a watch app and wearing your watch at night to track your sleep, Chuck, because a week or so ago, my son was home from college for fall break, and he got me to download a sleep tracking iPhone app that he's been using. And he's like, oh, you just put it on your night table, and it listens to your breathing to tell you kind of how you slept. And I thought, oh, cool, my son's using this app. I'll try it. And I, got to bed, and then it was kind of turning it on. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. I'm not sure I want this app listening all night in my bedroom. I've got to go find out some more about this before I turn it on. And that's as far as I've gotten with it. But it seems like
it seems like a terrible idea.
Some privacy issues there.
Yeah, I've seen those. There's some iPhone apps that you allegedly lay on the bed with you, and it determines how much you roll around and how active you are at night or whatever. And I didn't like that. Tonya, I can't use that one because to block out any noise, I use a white noise app at night. So it wouldn't know whether I was breathing or not.
So I'd actually like to take this back a level, which is this whole quantified lifestyle. So I'm a competitive athlete. And so I run with a Garmin Forerunner, or so I'm tracking time and distance and level, particular types of workouts and things like that. And we also have one of those, it's a Y-Things kind of body analyzer. It's a scale basically, but it takes does your heart rate and body mass index and various other things too. And so it's been interesting having this data in some ways, but I think it's important to, and sort of as when you start looking in the coaching world, data for data's sake is not useful. There has to be something the data is going to do to tell you that will allow you to change your behavior. And so, this is sort of one of the problems I have with the sleep monitoring thing is like, well, if I'm asleep, or at least I think I'm asleep, how is that going to help me change my behavior? If it tells me I had a bad night's sleep, but I don't remember it, then that's not helping me change my behavior. I mean, it would be better if, actually, the screen time feature in iOS 12. This is a good example. You can set, a bedtime, air time in the clock app, and then you can also in screen time you can have it like shutting down. So you don't use certain types of things before bedtime. You could not have all that set initially and then just watch what you do and say, wow, I didn't sleep very well last night. And look, I was using this app late at night. I was playing games, right before bed. Maybe that's a bad thing to do. It is a bad thing to do. But But that's the kind of thing where if the data will tell you something that's actionable, that's useful. If it's just data and you don't know what to make of it, not helpful, especially if it's going to make you anxious.
I have just a question about the home kit. Is there integration with the watch and lights and other devices?
Question about HomeKit integration?
The HomeKit integration with the watch.
So we haven't done much with HomeKit. Chuck, have you?
Not nearly enough. No.
So basically, what you're going to be able to do with HomeKit, I believe, in the watch is kind of what you can do with Siri. Basically, you're controlling it via Siri. So you'd be able to, use Siri to turn on lights or invoke scenes or that kind of thing. So I don't think it's a specific watch feature so much as just kind of a Siri feature, and you'd be able to, however you can get to Siri, you could now have it go through, flow through and have it control your HomeKit devices.
So I'm just looking on my watch, and there is a home app.
Oh, okay.
Which doesn't do a whole lot in my home because we have not set up any HomeKit devices.
Well, no, we have our
It
HomePods.
looks to me like probably you would be able to, get into your different scenes and, turn things on and off, whatnot.
Yeah, right.
So I think probably pretty likely you could sit right in your recliner and push a button to, get movie watching lighting and push another button to get the movies over lighting and those kinds of things.
I will say, so we have a HomePod, and it's saying dining room HomePod, no response. I was like, well, come on, respond. Why?
Yeah, I'm getting
no
living
response?
room Apple TV, no response.
Yeah, same thing. Oh wait,
So
I think I might have just started playing.
someone in the
music on
room
HomePod.
there must have the home app on their watch and be using it. Let's crowdsource this question.
Can you hear music playing downstairs?
Yes,
Hey, it works.
he he got the HomePod to play music.
Yeah, I will say this. I've done a little bit with HomeKit and also with the Amazon devices. And I'm sorry, I still find Siri so much better than Alexa.
Yeah, okay.
That's okay. You don't have to apologize in this
Well,
crowd.
Well, it's interesting that so many people seem to go the other way, but Siri is much more accurate with what I want. Now, I'm quick to tell you that usually I'm shouting at the Amazon device from across the room. If I have any question about whether I'm going to be able to talk to Siri properly, I just raise the watch right up here, and I'm basically have a microphone right into HomeKit. So if you don't mind that concept, I know some people seem to be offended by the idea that I can't just talk into the air a la Star Trek and have things happen. But, it is what it is.
I found all these things. So, the problem is that I think we don't have a very good idea of what voice interfaces can do and should do. And frankly, they don't do very much right now. That when you talk to Siri or any of these, you're completely talking in Siri's space. You're not talking normally at all. And so you're training yourself to come up with the phrases that Siri will understand and the terminology and even the sentence structure. So, we're a long ways from being able to just talk to them. But the fact of the matter is that, when we talk, a lot of people don't understand what we say. It's not necessarily the computer's fault either. We're often kind of confusing when we talk. So, but for instance, one of the things I've discovered with the HomePod is that if you want to play music on the HomePod, and we have Apple Music, so we can play, 20 million tracks, whatever, it turns out to be hard to think of what to put on. That, again, being of a certain age, we had the stacks of albums that you'd flip through, or the CD shelves, and you'd kind of say, oh, I want to listen to this one. And even now with iTunes, I often will just scroll through like the artist list. It's like, oh, I feel like listening to so-and-so. But I don't think I want to listen to the Beatles. I have to see the Beatles in a list before I think I want to listen to the Beatles. And so when you're just kind of talking to the air, you don't get those cues that you might be used to. And it's possible this is a purely generational thing, and kids who are like 6 now will be completely comfortable just talking to the air because they won't have ever had these cues of looking at an object to determine what you think.
Well, and two, once you start subscribing to things like Apple Music, you don't have to have your own library or your own collection. All you have to do is decide this is what you want to hear.
But that's the hard part. That's the hard part.
It's the hard part for us.
What do I want to hear?
Yeah, it's the hard part for us. But on the other hand, as long as I can think of the artist, the odds are pretty good that Siri is going to recognize it and
yes. Oh, it'll work. It'll work. It is purely a decision tree problem. Oh, well, what do I feel like listening to? I don't know.
How many HomePods in the audience?
I have one, Chuck. I think some of the issue with Siri is that she's still not very good with context. For example, I was at 50th Street and 3rd Avenue, and it was raining this past weekend, and I said, Siri, where is the nearest subway? Where can I get the nearest subway to Penn Station? And she answered, there's a Subway restaurant in 1 block from here. That's not what I wanted.
Yeah, I won't speak for Adam and Tonya. I have mixed feelings about our expectations versus some of the AI's performance right now. I think we're still very early days. We're still trying to figure out the people smarter than us are trying to figure out how to give you exactly what you want. I mean, what you just described is probably a very reasonable misunderstanding.
Agreed. But it didn't help me.
No, but if, on the other hand, if you'd been hungry and you said, where's the nearest subway? You know, it would have
You wouldn't, I guess you could say that, but
I
probably
to Penn Station.
If you just said that's what gets a Penn Station, it might have helped you.
But that might have been.
Limiting by saying subway, it took you a different route. Just say, how can I get to Penn Station? And it may say you can walk, bus, and give you 5 answers. So how you ask a question determines what kind of answers you get.
Correct.
right, and that was Adam's point. That that you have to learn Siri's sentence structure. She's not learning yours right now. But if you learn to phrase your questions and comments to her, it works reasonably well.
So Google's actually doing, frankly, more on this than Apple is because they're Google. They do search. And so there's 2 parallel tracks on the development. Track 1 is basically what Siri is doing. It's just canned questions and answers. It's the who did X, how do I find Y, those kinds of things where you can just, all it has to do is really figure out the subject, figure out the specific words, and then there's just an easy answer that it knows. I call that bar trivia. Who won the Super Bowl in 1976? Couldn't care less, but I'm sure Siri could tell me. And actually, they could never tell me who has world records in running events, which I actually do care about. But the other parallel track, and this is, I know Google is working on this in a big way, is just basically a Google search, where you're just asking this kind of free form question, and it's got to be able to come up with something. And that's much, much harder to do well. But as I said, that's what Google really, that's what they excel in. So, I figure that they will probably do a better job at it than Apple, at least in the near term. They've just got so much more data on what people search for that this is a machine learning problem in many ways.
Yeah. Rick, I don't want us to overstay our welcome. How are we doing on time?
Doing okay. Anybody still have questions? Go ahead, David. All right, go ahead.
I have a question. With the elderly falling, it's my understanding that the traditional device, the person has to push something, whereas the Apple Watch detects it.
Yes.
So if an elderly person takes a bad fall and they're incapacitated in any way, nothing's going to happen, correct? Unless they push the button. Whereas the Apple Watch hopefully detects the fall.
Precisely.
In X time, it's going to make an emergency call and or call a contact.
Yes.
Exactly right.
And yes, and it tells the people where you are. It knows where you are. The device that and Tanya's comment that the elderly are not going to want to wear one of those things, whereas for an elderly person to have an Apple Watch might be a badge of courage or whatever. And the other thing is I can't see Apple not linking their EarPods or AirPods, whatever they call them, to their watch in the next release. I can't believe that they haven't done that already.
Oh, they are.
Oh, they are. They connect just fine. I do it most days.
Oh, so if you want to listen to music, you just buy the
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, and you use a Bluetooth AirPods or some kind of a Bluetooth device. It doesn't have to be from Apple, and you pair it to the watch.
Yeah, so that solves the problem of listening to music wherever.
Yeah. The AirPods, it's actually kind of interesting. We bought AirPods. I tried them for, 30 seconds at some point. And then Tanya's like, okay, those are mine. And she took them and I haven't used them since.
They stay in my ears really well.
And she was the one who complained that these things never stay in her ears.
Now, the problem that they don't solve, however, is if you want to listen to music with someone else.
Yes.
So they put you off in your own little world listening to your thing, and you become like, a pod person from the perspective of the other people in your life. But if that's good for you, then it's good.
But it is interesting, though, the AirPods actually may have been maybe Apple's most popular product. I mean, those things just sell like hotcakes.
They're Apple's wired earbuds, I guess is what they're called.
Earpods,
yes. They make my ears feel like they're bleeding. They hurt so badly. They're just absolutely amazing.
And not in a good way, Chuck.
No. Thank you, Adam.
So it was so nice. I always feel like if Apple makes a product that I'm just physically incompatible with, it's kind of like, is it them or is it me? There's sort of a unhappiness there. Like, what's wrong with me that Apple, the great god of computers, right, can't make this product but they absolutely could not wear them. But the great thing about the AirPods is they're reasonably comfortable, and somehow they really stay in when I'm running. It's really great.
I want to echo that. I'm wearing EarPods right now because I don't want to run out of battery life, and I use my AirPods all day. It makes no sense whatsoever that the wires that are on these constantly, these things will fall out, or they're unlike you, they are not comfortable necessarily to wear. The AirPods I can put in, and I can forget they're in until I walk past a mirror or walk past a plate glass window or something. It's like, oh,
you're like, oh, look at me! I've got these white things hanging out of my head.
Yeah, and I wonder why nobody's talking to me. Because they think I'm listening to music. So yeah, but they are super comfortable. They're the best wireless earphones I've ever used for phone calls. There's something about removing that wire. That's all I can figure, but it makes a huge difference.
So I will say the one thing the AirPods do not do, and I still like my $7 Chinese earbud for, is that if I'm mowing the lawn and I've got ear protectors on, cannot use the AirPods with those because they come down a little too much, and you constantly just knock them out as soon as you put the ear protectors on. So whereas this goes right in your ear, and it's very stiff. It doesn't come out easily at all. Other than Tonya couldn't put it in at all. I mean, didn't fit in her ear.
It just didn't stay in.
Yeah,
that's why I had to take the AirPods.
Yeah, right. But mine's only $7.
So you can get 20 more for the cost.
Yeah, I hope you have.
And I haven't lost it yet. I keep.
Yeah, you have a stash of them somewhere, Adam, to make sure.
Who knows? Maybe it's cheaper now. This was a couple of, a year and a half ago.
How does it get cheaper than $7?
How do they ship something to here from China for $7?
Yeah.
I have one quick question. If you have with cellular service, can you get the watch app on the iPad, sync the watch with the iPad, or it only works with iPhones?
You have to pair your Apple Watch with an iPhone. There's not a watch. The watch app doesn't run on the iPad, unfortunately.
Does it run on a Google phone or just iPhone?
Can't hear.
Say again?
Work on Android, or it only works presently on iPhones?
Only
iPhone.
Only on the iPhone. You truly have to have an iPhone in order to have an Apple Watch.
And there's actually, it has to be moderately new. I think it's the 5 or the 5S. I can't remember which one is the oldest you can go.
Yes.
Android, what are you doing here?
He's in the audience.
We put up with him.
Yeah. In the orange, yes, sir.
Chuck, good day. Are you through babbling there now?
Alexa.
Chuck, I wanted to go back 1 second to the sleep monitoring. Can that tie in at all to alarms? Do you know?
From what standpoint?
If it wasn't, let's say you were asleep, you woke up, it's monitoring the fact, now it says you're awake, and then you dozed off again. Could you have somehow set an alarm to wake you because you dozed off? In other words, let's just say you had, I don't know, you were very tired. I forget what the condition is called when you sleep goes off. Pardon me? Narcolepsy. Yes, narcolepsy. Is there any way you know of to tie it into, to zap you?
No.
But there'll be an app for that.
There's got to be an app that'll do that, though. Like college students would want to do something like that. Yeah. I want to wake up every hour on the hour to see what happens.
Not that I know of. I mean, that's an interesting idea. But I mean, I think you're almost talking like about a snooze kind of thing. And my workaround to that, if I had that issue, would be that I'd set my alarm for, say, 6:30 a.m. and then I'd set another one for 7 a.m. and another one for 7:30 a.m. just to make sure that I wasn't going back to sleep. But I don't think there's anything that says, I'm falling asleep, wake me up. And I don't know how you would do that, short of some kind of piercing sound out of the watch, or maybe turn the vibrator on the watch, to maximum or something. And even then, if you had a narcolepsy thing, I doubt that would wake you.
Well, here's an actual use. You're driving. I wonder if it could monitor pulse and whatnot. If it realized, oh my goodness, this person is falling asleep. Their pulse keeps getting slower and slower. It would vibrate like crazy and make a noise.
Tonya, I think that would be a challenge, just because by the very nature of being in a car, you're going to have that constant.
You'd have to have that "I'm not driving" button.
Well, but you're going to have that subtle motion going on all the time, or the vibration, as opposed to being asleep.
I think the devices that actually do detect that use cameras to see where you're looking and if your head drops and that kind of stuff. Yeah,
and I think there's something you can almost, Adam, a little bit like your earpiece that you put on your ear.
Yeah, if you start,
head goes down, it snaps you back. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. No, sorry, no jolts.
I was at a conference a year or two ago, and there was a company trying to sell a smart bed.
Yeah, they really weren't quite clear on what made it a smart bed.
What did it do, Tonya?
I'm trying to think. I feel like
I think it did sleep
Like it had
tracking.
different temperatures on the different sides. I can't really remember, honestly.
Yeah. And some sleep tracking stuff, but yeah. So, all right, maybe we should go for one more question.
Yeah.
Are we going to, may I ask a question?
Yeah, loud, please.
Okay.
Use your microphone.
Oh, thank you. Regarding the app that assists you if you fall, is this something that's only available in the cellular model, or is it also available in the non-cellular model, Wi-Fi? And what is the range? Could you be anywhere? Do you have to be within the proximity of your home, or can you be miles away going for a jog?
So the fall detection, it's not actually even an app. It's just built into the watch, and it is only in the Series 4. So you need a new one. It's not in the Series 3 or earlier, and it will work anywhere because it's detecting you and it's communicating either via its cellular connection or your iPhone's cellular connection.
And so to be more clear, it will work anywhere where there is reasonable cell access. So like maybe in the bottom of a subway station, not so much.
Oh, they have pretty good cell service these days.
Unless they have good cell service down there. But that's the concern is the quality of the cellular connection.
Right.
And you always need to bring your phone with you with the watch where you would go?
Yes.
Or you need either your phone or you need a cellular watch with a cellular plan.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, if you think about it, it just makes sense. Just the same
Got
way
a call. Yeah.
yeah, you've got to get the word out somehow. So
No, it's nice because if you're jogging by yourself, God forbid, if you're someplace at night or in the evening and it's quiet and you're around and there's nobody around to help you, I mean, that's a wonderful thing to have before you do some type of distress. How much you not able to help you by yourself.
one last thing I don't think we noted about it is that if you are, I'm not sure, there's no discrimination here. It's just the way it is, that if you are in your information that you give the watch, if you're over 65, it turns it on automatically. If you're under 65, you can still turn it on, but you have to go in and turn it on.
And to be clear, it turns it on automatically if you filled out your medical ID record in the Health app and said you're 65, because it doesn't know how old you are otherwise.
What does that mean? Your area of your data, is that what that means?
Yeah, basically, if you go in on the iPhone, if you go into the Health app, find it here. If you go into the Health app and it's the right-hand screen, it's 9 o'clock. Things are starting to happen on my Mac.
Yeah.
When you fill out the medical ID in the Health app, that information becomes available on your iPhone. A first responder can access it even if they can't unlock your phone. So it just is another way of conveying emergency contact information. If you have a particular condition you would want the EMTs to know about, it's just another way of potentially getting that information out. So it's a good idea to fill it in.
Yeah, definitely fill it in. It can't hurt anything. It can only help.
For once, it's okay to give away information.
You want EMTs to have this information.
Yeah. Guys, thank you. This has been interesting. And Long Island, thank you for having us. This has been a lot of fun. So, Long Island, we will see you again. Adam, Tonya, great to have you as always.
Always great to see both you and LIMac.
Thank you. This was really fun.
And maybe next time we'll make it down for dinner.
That's right. We still have to have our Thai food tonight. It's like a tradition, right?
We were going to invite you, but it was kind of a long drive just to come down and then go back up there.
And we couldn't get the noodles through the wires.
At least they're shaped right. Folks, I'm Chuck Joyner. This is Mac Voices. I hope you enjoyed this visit to the Long Island Mac User Group with Adam and Tonya. We will be back again soon. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.
Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our MacVoices Facebook group, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us at patreon.com/MacVoices and join these folks who help keep MacVoices coming to you. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CashFly at cashfly.com.